Let's dive right into today's explainer, where we're decoding something that has probably frustrated every single one of us at some point: losing weight. We're not doing crash diets today, no endless, grueling gym sessions. Instead, we're looking at a super simple, step-by-step blueprint. We're talking about actually designing your environment for success, rather than just relying on sheer, exhausting willpower. So if you're just starting out, or you're just tired of constantly starting over, you are absolutely in the right place. Now, people usually think weight loss is this simple math equation, right? Like half diet, half exercise. But our source material breaks this down in a pretty hilarious yet painfully accurate way. Diet and exercise combined, that's honestly only about 25% of the battle. Another 25% is getting good quality sleep. And the other 500%, well, that's actually doing the thing you said you were going to do. And that staggering 500% is exactly what we're going to conquer today.
Okay, let's look at the agenda. Here's our roadmap. First, setting up for success. Second, simple nutrition without tracking. Third, movement that actually works. And fourth, building lifelong habits. All right, moving right into phase 1, setting up for success.
Look, starting a diet requires way more than just some fleeting spark of midnight inspiration. I mean, inspiration is great. Maybe you see a photo of someone super fit. But let's be real, it usually only lasts for a day and then it's just gone. To actually turn that inspiration into reality, we need measurable goals with realistic timelines. So instead of a super vague promise like, oh, I want to get in shape, you need a measurable checkpoint. Think more along the lines of, I'm going to lose 5 pounds by July 1st and another 5 by August 1st. Next up, create a realistic plan. Something simple, like swapping a sugary breakfast for a quick walk and some boiled eggs. Believe it or not, that one change alone is enough to drop fat in just a few weeks. But, and this is crucial, a plan is literally nothing without preparation.
Let's compare two different setups. If you rely purely on what we'll call a willpower environment, you're leaving that jar of grape jelly right at the front of the fridge, where it's the very first thing you see every single morning. But if you switch to a system environment, well, you've already boiled your eggs the night before and laid out your running clothes. Making failing difficult is the absolute secret sauce here. Honestly, if you keep buying junk food and keeping it visible, it kind of means you don't actually intend to stick to your diet. You're secretly just waiting for the day you give in. If you want to make it easy to eat healthy, you have to make it incredibly hard to eat junk.
Which brings us to section 2, simple nutrition without tracking. So, while a calorie deficit absolutely matters, it's the foundation. Obsessive tracking really isn't strictly necessary for you to start seeing results. You just need to grasp the basic rule: eating less energy than you burn. Say your body burns 2,000 calories a day, but you only eat 1,700. Well, your body still has to find that missing 300 calories of energy from somewhere, right? So, it taps into your stored fat. But a massive warning from our sources here: do not drop your calories too low. Plunging straight down to 1,200 calories might make you lose fat super fast at first, but it becomes virtually impossible to maintain over the long haul. The real secret to skipping all that tedious calorie counting is understanding visual volume. Just look at the difference here. 200 calories of Oreos is barely a snack. It's what, a few cookies? But 200 calories of strawberries? That is a massive, incredibly filling bowl. Processed, refined carbs are engineered to be unnaturally delicious. They're way too easy to overeat, and they just leave this empty void in your stomach. Swapping those out for high-volume fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins keeps you completely full. It makes hitting that calorie deficit feel almost effortless. Okay, let's rapid fire through some really solid craving strategies. First off, drink lots of water. Seriously, half the time you think you're hungry, you're actually just thirsty. Next, try to cut out snacking. Most of us snack because we're bored or stressed, not because we genuinely need fuel. Also, avoid liquid calories. Sodas, milkshakes, they just go down way too easily. Make zero-calorie swaps wherever you can. Try using smaller plates too. It's a great little psychological trick to make your brain feel full. And eat more protein. Protein is super satisfying. And get this, your body actually burns about 20 calories just trying to digest 100 calories of protein. Pretty cool, right? Oh, and a quick note on fats. Healthy fats are awesome, but you gotta be careful. Because fat packs 9 calories per gram, a single bag of trail mix practically has the caloric density of a dying neutron star. Seriously.
All right, moving on to section 3, movement that actually works.
We really need to completely reframe how we look at exercise. It is not a punishment for what you ate. It's the engine that improves your overall health. Plus, once you realize exactly how much physical effort it takes to burn off just 200 calories, you are way less likely to just casually pop open a 200-calorie bag of chips. So, looking at our breakdown, first, lifting weights is absolutely fantastic because it builds muscle, which actively boosts your resting metabolism. Second, walking. Hitting 10,000 steps a day is basically the ultimate beginner's cheat code for burning extra calories effortlessly. And finally, adding in some cardio just makes widening that calorie deficit a whole lot easier.
But here is the ultimate reality check for all of this. All that physical movement, the heavy lifting, the walking, it is practically useless without this one critical thing: good quality sleep. Sleep regulates your hormones. And when it comes down to fat loss, those hormones determine pretty much everything about how your body decides to store or burn energy. So please, whatever you do, do not ignore your sleep schedule.
And that brings us to our final phase, Section 4, Building Lifelong Habits. Look, knowing what to do is the easy part, right? But actually doing it when times get tough, that's where the real game is played. Let's talk about willpower for a second. By definition, willpower is just your ability to tell yourself no. But the harsh reality is that willpower is a finite resource. It absolutely will run out. You cannot rely on it when you, say, accidentally trip and fall face first into a booth at IHOP, open a menu where literally every single item is over 1,000 calories, and suddenly you're thinking, well, one cheat meal won't hurt. Or you utter the most dangerous words in the history of dieting, I'll actually start tomorrow. We've all been there. The key is to avoid setting up that temptation in the very first place.
Because ultimately, the real cheat code to motivation isn't willpower at all. It's doing something for so long that it just becomes a habit. And that is what we are really aiming for here. Habits. When you get to the point where waking up and going for a jog is just automatic, or when reaching for the strawberries instead of the Oreos happens without even a second thought, the entire plan gets 100 times easier. It literally gets easier every single day you do it.
I really want to leave you with this final thought. On this journey, you are inevitably going to slip up. It happens to all of us. But if you mess up, don't use it as an excuse to just throw in the towel and start eating a ton of junk food. Sure, messing up wasn't part of the plan, but giving up never was either. If you stick with it, eventually this won't even feel like a diet anymore. It stops being a conscious lifestyle choice and it simply becomes your personality. And that is the absolute ultimate goal. So I'll leave you with this. What is your next step going to be today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we decode another fascinating topic.